up? Welcome into the Short Ford Giant pregame show. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk, and there is no Caroline today. There is no Rick today. There was supposed to be a Jay today, but he's not here either. I'm assuming he got caught up being a dad, which is completely understandable. So you're just stuck with me here for the next 20 minutes, which means I'm probably going to be relying on you giving me your takes in all the chats. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and over at Twitch. Twitch.tv/official Oilers Nation. So give us a click over there. Make sure you subscribe over at our YouTube as well, and let me know what you think as the Oilers get ready to take on the Dallas Stars. It is the 77th game of the Oilers season. Let's start by going back to game 76, though, and wasn't that a boatload of fun? The Oilers walking out of that matchup against the Vegas Golden Knights, a big matchup against the Vegas Golden Knights, with a 4-0 victory and a game where I really don't think there's any denying they were the better team in that hockey game. When you look at, the guys they got goals from, they didn't need Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to carry the bulk of the offense. In fact, those guys didn't do anything on the offensive side of the puck. It was those under-the-radar names that you saw. Russell, Ceci, Fogle, even a guy like Nugent Hopkins down on the third line finding a way to make an impact. And the Oilers come out with a win that more or less solidified their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now. When you look at the way things are going in the Pacific Division, Edmonton sitting in that second spot at 94 points, as Liam nicely put up on the screen here. 94 points for the Oilers in 76 games. They're 2 up on LA with 2 games in hand. They're 7 up on the Vegas Golden Knights with a game in hand. They are 7 up as well on the Vancouver Canucks with a game in hand. There's basically no chance that Vegas or Vancouver can catch the Edmonton Oilers here. At the same time, you want to get that second spot locked up. So these points are still important for the Edmonton Oilers. Kyle in the Facebook chat, can't wait to roll through the NHL during the playoffs, and a lot of people are with you. I wrote about it today over at the site. There's a lot of reasons why fans should be believing in this Edmonton Oilers hockey team. And my apologies, my Twitch chat closed down, so I'm trying to get that opened up right now so I can connect with the people over at Twitch, because I know they always get mad when I only read comments from the Facebook chat. But yeah, still, it's a big game for the Oilers tonight. Dallas is a team that's going to come into this thing hungry. Dallas is in a fight right now. Similar to the Oilers, their spot in the playoffs is pretty close to locked up. Their spot in the playoffs pretty much wrapped up. They're sitting at 91 points in 76 games, and then you have the Vegas Golden Knights, who are really the only team that can catch them. Again, Vegas is 4 points back at Dallas. Dallas has a game in hand. This is a big game for Dallas, because if you don't win this, maybe there's still that outside chance that Vegas takes advantage and makes up that ground. But at this point in the season, there's just so few games left. Even when you look at LA trying to catch the Oilers, if the Oilers win tonight, or win one of those 2 games in hand, you're 4 points up with 4 games to go. The Oilers control their own destiny in terms of clinching a playoff spot, obviously, and also in terms of getting that home ice advantage as well. That game against Vegas, a ton of good signs. I mentioned the depth scoring coming through for them. There's a lot of guys who just had really good games. I look at a guy like Ryan McLeod. He only had 6 minutes and 31 seconds at 5-on-5 in that game. The Oilers outshot the Golden Knights 9-2 when he was on the ice. When Nuge was on the ice, the shots were 11-5 for the Oilers. Also, when McLeod was on the ice, how about this? Talk about efficiency. 6.5 minutes at 5-on-5. The Oilers not only outshot him 9-2, they outscored him 2-0, which is unreal. Warren Fogle, I thought, had a really, really good game, and that's a guy who I've talked about a lot. They need more out of Warren Fogle down the stretch. They need that Saturday afternoon Warren Fogle. They need that game in, game out for the rest of the regular season and especially into the playoffs. He's a guy who has playoff experience, right? He's been on a couple of runs with Carolina. The Oilers are a team as a whole that don't have a lot of playoff experience, not a lot of experience having success in the playoffs. So I think that's important. Daryl, I'm from Ontario. Can't wait to join you guys next year in Nashville. I hope you guys announce the trip as early as you can so we can meet up with the nation there. I'm excited to meet you, Daryl. The trip was really cool. There was actually a handful of people from Ontario this year who did exactly that. They flew down on their own and met up with us in Nashville, and it was really cool to hang out with everyone there. The nation vacations are a good time, and we're going to have more than one next year as well. We'll have our trips to Calgary. I'm pushing hard for us to go back to Vegas, pushing hard for us to go back to Nashville after we were already there once. So yeah, it's a great time. If you haven't been on a nation vacation yet, they are a lot of fun. Getting back to the hockey, what do you think, Liam? Should we start setting up the game tonight?
Let's do it.
All right, there you go. Liam has been granted mic privileges today because I have no co-host.
After 77 games, producer Liam has made it onto the show.
Let's get into this matchup tonight against the Dallas Stars. It's our opposition report brought to you by Yegburger. You better believe I had some Yegburger when I got back from Nashville. Tastes like home. It tastes like Edmonton. The Dallas Stars, they are, in a way, the definition of a one-line team. Their season has been fairly up and down, but like I said, they're pretty much locked into a playoff spot. You can see their leading score right there, 75 points on the season. It's basically that top line, like I said. Robertson, Hintz, and Pavelski. Those three have been great for the Stars so far this season. Great recently for the Stars as well. Since March 1st, the Dallas Stars have played 24 games. That top line has combined for 65 points. Those three players are the only ones with more than 20 points since March 1st as well. They really, really struggle in the depth department. Matt DeFranks from the Dallas Morning News was on the Daily Faceoff show today talking a little bit about that as well. The Stars have been a decent road team, though, which is maybe a mild cause for concern heading into this matchup. Since March 1st on the road, Dallas 9-5-0. That's 11th in the NHL in road points percentage. However, the Oilers 10-1-1 on home ice this season, second in the NHL in points percentage on home ice in that span. Edmonton's been virtually unbeatable on home ice so far since Jay Woodcroft basically took over. I know I used March 1st as the sample there, but even though they've lost 2 games, average goals for Edmonton in that span on home ice, 4.5. Average goals against, 2.5. They're beating teams on average by more than 2 goals over that stretch. So they've just been a fantastic home team, a fantastic home bet, and we'll get into our betting report in just a second here as well. The special teams matchup since March 1st, Edmonton's power play has gotten better. It feels like it's kind of put that mid-season slump they had in the rearview mirror. Still not quite as dangerous as it was early in the year. Since March 1st, Edmonton 11th in the NHL on the power play, 6th in the NHL on the penalty kill. Dallas 18th on the power play, 11th on the penalty kills. So Edmonton definitely with a special teams advantage here. And it feels weird to say this, but Edmonton has an advantage between the pipes as well. Jake Ottinger has not been great lately for the Dallas Stars, and I'm checking right now to see if he's confirmed. No, see, they're actually going with Scott Wedgwood tonight, which I think says a lot. Braden Holtby's on the shelf, but Ottinger in his last 3 games, in his last 5 games, has given up 15 goals against. He's given up 4 goals in 2 of his last 3 as well. Wedgwood is potentially taking over as the guy in Dallas, which is really surprising. In his last 5 games here, he's only allowed 12 goals. So his numbers are better than Ottinger's. Wedgwood is going to get the start here tonight. He had a shutout a couple of weeks ago against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So the journeyman Wedgwood putting some good numbers together for the Dallas Stars. On the other side of that, though, Mike Smith's been unbelievable. Unbelievable. When you look at his last 5 games, the guy's only allowed 4 goals in his last 5 starts. It's remarkable, and it's not like he isn't facing a crazy workload. 32 shots, he allows 1 goal against Anaheim. 32 shots, 1 goal against San Jose. 33 shots, 2 goals against LA. And oh yeah, he has back-to-back shutouts. He's stopped 69 consecutive shots, which is pretty nice. Liam, is your confidence back in Mike Smith?
I think this is the first time I've really believed in him since last season, to be honest, or maybe even just coming into this season, I guess. Hopes were high on him, and then, you know, it's been what it is with him. But maybe Tippett was right all along. You just gotta play him, and that's what they've done. And now he's good. It's too bad Tippett. Well, it's not too bad, but you know what I mean. But yeah,
Tippett isn't here to see his prediction come true.
And he sat there on his couch sipping on a whiskey saying, I told you guys, this is what I knew was going to happen.
Ken Holland said it too. And we laughed at him. I was one of the people that was screaming for Mike Smith to go on waivers a couple of months ago, and he's really turned it around. I've been harping on this, though. I think a big thing for the Oilers is going to be keep both goalies going. And now it's hard. You can't not play a goalie off a shutout unless his name's Stuart Skinner, in which case you send him to the minors and never call him back up again. But you back-to-back shutouts, you need to go back to Smith tonight. But I think there's a case to be made that no matter what, you really, really consider, even if Smith plays great today, only allows 1 or 2 goals, I think you really have to consider going back to Mikko on Friday, because if you don't play Mikko Friday, then you're getting to the point where he's going 12, 13 days in between starts, and I don't think that's a recipe for success. Scott Aroni said, "In Smith we trust." And I think right now that's probably true. If the playoffs started today, if this was game 1 of round 1, yeah, then Mike Smith's getting the start. If Friday was game 1 of round 1, yeah, Mike Smith is getting the start. But I think this Friday against Colorado, Mikko played Colorado really, really well a while ago. And I just look at that and I go, he's a guy who you should be giving starts. And you never know when Mike Smith is going to falter. You never know when Mikko is going to falter. But at least if you keep them both fresh, I think that's the best way for Jay Woodcroft to handle this down the stretch. Speaking of Jay Woodcroft, how about Connor McDavid's agent putting out a little tweet responding to TSN's Ryan Rishaug? Rishaug asked, has Jay Woodcroft done enough to earn a long-term deal? Jeff Jackson, agent for Connor McDavid, says yes. And I think that speaks a little bit to the culture in the room. If McDavid's agent is aware that McDavid is happy under Woodcroft, I think that says a lot about the way the Oilers are rolling right now and the way communication is rolling between the players and their head coach. 3-year deal. I know that's been spit out a little bit. I could see that coming. Kylie in the Twitch chat, do you think there's a point where we worry about Smith getting too confident and we see him pushing blame to the younger guys again? Yes and no. I mean, it depends which side of the coin you want to come out on that. Was Smith having his outburst because he was struggling? I don't know. I think it's tough to tell. You would hope that the strong play has built up a little bit of confidence in Smith, where he's not just going to try to deflect everything on the other guys, or if he has a game where he gives up 3 goals, he's not going to look to put blame everywhere. Oh, look at that. Jay tweeted me. Totally let Tyler down today. That's okay. He did ask if he could zoom in, but the logistics of that, once we've already started recording, just don't really work. I like this one from Bjorn. Maybe a nation vacation to Oktoberfest. That would be pretty deadly. Pretty deadly. We'll get to our betting report in a second here. Kyle, do you think Holloway will get called up? No. Like he hasn't been healthy either, which I think is a part of it. I don't think you bring that guy up for the playoffs when your forward group is rolling as well as they are. I actually have an article up today over at Oilers Nation outlining sort of the 9 forwards under McDavid and Draisaitl last year, this year, and this year under Woodcroft, and what their points per 60 are at 5-on-5. Edmonton's getting good production from pretty much everyone in their lineup below Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And those guys are always going to produce for you. They're always going to be there. But it's way better than it was on the year as a whole right now. It's way better than it was last year. I don't think there's a spot for Dylan Holloway. And I know that sounds kind of weird right now to say, because I think he could help, if that sounds weird, but I wouldn't call him up. And that sounds twisted, but I think you can prioritize his development in this right now.
I think the thing is, too, like you said, he's been injured a ton in Bakersfield. He's got to get in the rhythm down there. Plus, he's such an essential player to Bakersfield, who are going to be in the playoffs pretty quick. I could see him coming up and being with the team once Bakersfield's season is done, but I don't think he'll play. And I mean, if you do play him, who are you taking out right now? The first line's really clicking, the second line's clicking, the third line's clicking, and then you can play with, if you do 11 and 7, you have McLeod and Cassian or Shaw, whoever. You can kind of cycle through with McDavid and Draisaitl, which worked pretty well on Saturday, especially with Cassian.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. And that was actually a question we had in the chat. Do you keep rolling with 11 and 7? Is it here to stay? From Michael Parker. 11 and 7 won a Stanley Cup for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So the idea that it's unprecedented for a team to go on a run in the playoffs doing 11 and 7, I don't know. I think you can. And I think the Oilers work well with it. I've talked about this, but the fact that Chris Russell can shoot left and right, that gives you the ability to plop him into whatever pairing you want on the back end. He can take minutes away from all 6 of your regular defensemen, keep them rested, because you know you're going to need them rested during the playoffs. Like, you remember last year, those overtime games where Nurse was playing like 45 minutes or 60 minutes, whatever the insane number was. One, your blue line's probably a little bit deeper right now, but if you go with 11 and 7, maybe those games don't get that out of hand. Maybe you're not draining your guys on a game-to-game basis as much as maybe you were last year and against Chicago a couple of years ago as well. That's a nice tie-in to the lineup report. Let's start with the visitors, though, in the Dallas Stars. I mentioned that top line. Dangerous. Roope Hintz, Jason Robertson, and Joe Pavelski have combined for 9 goals in their last 5 games. None of these other lines for Dallas have combined for more than 2. And it's the 2 goals that Tyler Seguin scored on the second line with Jacob Peterson on his left side and Denis Gurianov on his right side. Jamie Benn centers the third line with Radulov and Marian Studenic and Radek Faksa with Michael Raffel and Luke Glendening. I think the strategy here, going with Benn and Seguin both down the middle and on separate lines, is to try get some sort of scoring depth rolling towards the playoffs, or for the playoffs if you're the Dallas Stars. I don't know if that's going to work. Their scoring depth has been not great all season. The back end for Dallas is Suter with Heiskanen, Lindell with Klingberg, and Hanley with Hakanpää. That top 4 is good. That top 4 is a big reason why life for their goaltenders can be easy at times. Really, really solid top 4. That third pairing is good in their limited minutes as well. But it's the scoring depth for Dallas that is going to be sort of their kryptonite heading into the playoffs. I mentioned it starting between the pipes is Scott Wedgwood for the Stars. For the Edmonton Oilers, the lineups, expecting it to stay the same. I know some people were asking about Yamamoto and Kane. So Evander Kane had to fly to New York for a hearing regarding his contract termination with the San Jose Sharks, but he is back and he's expected to play tonight. So McDavid with Kane and Puljujarvi. There were some maintenance days recently as well, but Draisaitl should be sticking with Yamamoto and Hyman. Nuge with Fogle and Ryan. McLeod and Cassian as the extras, and then the D pairings. You know how it rolls. It's Nurse with Cece. It's Keith with Bouchard. Kulak with Barry, with Russell getting mixed in there. Liam, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Since Jay Woodcroft took over, the top 3 Oilers, points per 60. Draisaitl, McDavid, and Kane. Who is 4th on that list?
I would guess Yamamoto, because he had that run. My guess is Yamamoto or Ryan.
Derek Ryan is 4th on that list. He's been lights out since Jay Woodcroft took over. Unbelievable.
And that's why that third line works so well, because you have that production. And it's nice to see Woodcroft doesn't have that stubbornness to not go back to it. Kind of like what we saw with Dry, Nuge, and Yamamoto in that playoffs a few years ago where we got knocked out by Chicago. Like, if it works, just go back to it. It doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Coombsy and I have a new YouTube video up right now. It's over on the Nation Network YouTube, so go watch it and go subscribe, please, about the Oilers' head-to-heads and who they could potentially line up against in the playoffs. Because right now, there is still an outside shot that they could play any one of LA, Vegas, or the Vancouver Canucks. My answer to the question of who's the best matchup for the Oilers is the Vancouver Canucks. It's the LA Kings. Vancouver was 2nd, Vegas was 3rd. The LA Kings, no Drew Doughty. He is not coming back for them. Their forward depth is good, but not great, and their goalies have been wildly inconsistent. The Oilers have played them pretty well recently as well. I'm just looking, Liam, you got that up on the screen right there. Is that so far this year?
This one isn't up yet because they didn't load with the thing, so
okay.
2 seconds.
But again, Edmonton has beaten them 3 times out of the 4 games they played them this year. Edmonton's played LA well. LA's not getting any healthier. I think that's a really good matchup for the Oilers. Vancouver, their forward depth isn't as good as LA's, so there's that. There's how the Oilers have done against LA. You had the 5-1 loss earlier in the year, and then everything else, like, that's all Tippett era or Woodcroft era. They've been very good in the Woodcroft era against the LA Kings. Perfect 3-0. So I think LA is definitely the answer to who is the best matchup for the Edmonton Oilers. With Vancouver, like I was saying, their forward depth not as good. Their blue line, it's healthier at least. I wouldn't say it's necessarily that much better. But between the pipes, Thatcher Demko's got to scare you. And going up against a team in round 1 who had to be red hot just to get in, a la Edmonton Oilers in 06, I wouldn't want that with Vancouver. And Demko's so good that he can single-handedly win you a series. Whereas Quick and Pettersson, they're not those guys. You can see the head-to-heads here between Edmonton and Vancouver. Yeah, I mean, Edmonton's played them well, but look at that. Low-scoring games. I think you would prefer to play a team who you have an easier time scoring against, and that's the LA Kings, in my opinion. And Vegas, I think everyone in the fan base is in agreement. You probably don't want to touch the Vegas Golden Knights. If they are in the playoffs and salary cap's no longer an issue, that'd be concerning for me. And they've come out, and again, Edmonton's done well. A big reason why Edmonton is probably going to have home ice advantage in round 1 of the playoffs is because how well they've played against the Pacific Division. Like, that's a massive reason why. They have winning records against Vegas, Vancouver, and LA. They play the Pacific well. That's why they've been able to keep this buffer and this gap between them and those other teams, right?
I think another reason, too, why Vancouver would be bad is, like you said, the goaltending. Like, look what happened last year with Hellebuck. We all thought we were going to walk over Winnipeg, and then obviously Connor Hellebuck just showed up for the playoffs, and he's a bit more experienced, I guess, than Demko, but Demko's still an elite goaltender in the NHL and can steal a series.
Yeah. Demko's legit. Remember what he did to Vegas, right? Like, that series only went to 7 games because of how good Thatcher Demko was.
And he was a rookie that year.
Yeah.
Didn't he get called up for the playoffs?
Yeah, more or less. So you don't want to touch Vancouver. Vegas, I mean, Leonard's banged up and he hasn't been great lately, but I still don't want to run into Robin Leonard. I'm not worried about Peterson or Quick. Like, it's just whatever. Simon 94. If we sign this guy from the KHL, is he eligible to play this year? The guy you're talking about is Andrei Kuzmenko. And no, if they sign him, he would not be eligible to play this season. After the trade deadline, you can't play it. That's the general rule. But I was looking at this guy's numbers. This season with St. Petersburg in the KHL, which is a top-tier team in the KHL, 53 points in 45 games. He's only 26 years old. But let's compare those to Artemi Panarin's last year in the KHL, 62 points in 54 games. So 9 more points in 7 more games. He's comparable to what Panarin did his last season in the KHL, compared to Kirill Kaprizov, 62 points in 57 games. 9 more points in 10, 12 more games. This guy's numbers are comparable to Kaprizov and Panarin in their final years. I know the ages are a little bit different and whatnot, but still. It's interesting. If the Oilers can get him, I think that's a bigger signing than maybe what some people might realize. I realize we are running late on this show here as well. So let's get into our betting report brought to you by PointsBet Canada. If you are like our friend Daryl from Ontario, PointsBet Canada is live in your province. Go download the app for us. We got links on social media, so follow that link we've been posting. And go give the PointsBet app a download. The Oilers are favorites in this game. The line's been shifting towards them all day as well. They're minus 180 on the money line. They are minus 115 to win the game in regulation, plus 150 on the puck line as well. And you know where I'm putting my money tonight, Liam? I'm putting my money on Connor McDavid to go over 1.5 points. I like the payout, even money on PointsBet. McDavid has been money on home ice as of late, and you know what? He's not leading the NHL scoring race anymore. Jonathan Huberdeau has jumped Connor McDavid in the NHL scoring race this season, and I don't think that's going to sit well with our boy Connie Mack. I think he's going to be fired up for a big game. I might even put a little bit on McDavid over 2.5 points at plus 260, because that's how confident I am that 97 is going to come out after getting shut down and shut out against Vegas. Wasn't on the score sheet. I think he's going to be hungry to get that scoring lead back. He's not going to let Jonathan Huberdeau sit with that thing for another day.
I'm with you. I was going to put my money there, too. I'm feeling pretty frisky today, Tyler. Okay. I am going to take a leaf out of your book, and I think puck line.
Puck line Liam today.
Puck line Liam.
Plus 150 on PointsBet. I don't hate that either. I don't hate that at all. Connor McDavid shot prop, minus 147. He might be in the mood to shoot. How about Draisaitl shot prop coming in at plus 130? Has he been hitting that recently? No, he's been missing it a good amount because it's set at 3.5. He's only hit it twice in his last 5 games. So plus 130 is actually a decent payout on that still if you want to take a stab at it. But I might go both those shot props, then McDavid over 1.5, McDavid over 2.5, and I'm with you. Oilers puck line. How can you not believe in this team? They're 10-1-1 since March 1st on home ice. No one can beat them on home ice right now. They're virtually unbeatable, except for the 2 games they lose. Take those out, they're unbeatable on home ice.
I got one more for you.
Okay.
How about Evan Bouchard's shot prop? He missed it last game,
he
but
did,
right now it's plus 120. He hit it in 4 straight before that. 3, 4, 6, and 3. I don't know. He's shooting.
Not bad. I don't hate it.
Had 7 a few games ago against Anaheim, too. Maybe that's something.
Yeah. All right. We are going to work towards wrapping this thing up here. McDavid looking to take back the NHL scoring lead. The Oilers looking to stay in the win column and pick up their 3rd win in a row. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. The Dallas Stars, yeah, okay, they're 11th in the NHL in points percentage on the road since March 1st. They're also only 5-3-2 in their last 10 games. The Oilers are on a roll. The Stars are coming off a 6-2 loss to the Canucks, and they're starting Scott Wedgwood. This guy's on his third organization in the last 3 years. I like the Oilers to torch the Stars tonight. I think it's not clinch miss. They're not clinching yet. We're getting close. Could clinch Friday potentially against the Colorado Avalanche. Could technically clinch before then if you win tonight and things break your way. Vegas is in action tonight as well, so go cheer on the Washington Capitals as they take on the Golden Knights. And hopefully the Oilers leave us feeling good here. Bagged Milk will be on Instagram with the Beatcast after the game. Before I wrap things up, I need to tell you a little bit more about our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant, because they are doing something very cool right now that I wanted to pass along. They're teaming up with Scars Alberta to help rescue animals and help them find forever homes this month. Join them April 30th for the Spring Adopt a Petathon, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and save a life, accepting donations of pet supplies as well at their dealership. So if you're around that Sherwood Ford area, go for a little drive. If you got some pet stuff you can drop off and donate, do it at Sherwood Ford. And again, that is on April 30th, coming up in 10 days. They're going to be doing the Spring Adopt a Petathon. Adopt a Pet-a-thon, like marathon, right? Donate the supplies and get 10% off your service as well. So there's something in it for you. They're teaming up with Scars Alberta. Head over to their social media feed. We tag them in everything and give them some love. They have more info about that on their Twitter and their Instagram as well. Shout out to Sherwood Ford, the Giants. Shout out to Yegburger. You don't want to cook tonight, go order some Yegburger. And shout out to Liam, who was fantastic on the mic today. We'll talk to you again on Fridays. The Oilers take on the Colorado Avalanche. Enjoy the game.